Rick Edwards. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Richmond. We're going to be doing our mid-year updates on crime. We're going to start with some just general updates before we get in on that. So first, we're going to be updating you all on we had an officer-involved shooting on 3/31 of this year, 1900 block of Cedar Avenue. We have just received information from the Richmond Commonwealth's Attorney's Office that they will that they have declined prosecution. So that's the update on that case. We're now currently conducting our internal review of that for any potential policy violations. Another notable update, we'll be breaking some news here today. Many of you have asked about the Hammond Street homicide. So we've arrested the third and final suspect in that case. Kendall Oliver was arrested on Thursday, July 4th by the North Carolina Highway Patrol. So we're awaiting extradition to Richmond on that case, but that wraps up this particular case that I know has garnered a lot of attention. We're also going to be updating folks on the Operation Safe Summer. So as everyone knows, we had a very difficult April when it comes to gun violence in our city. So we started it early with all the partners you can see here. So the FBI, the ATF, the DOJ, the Virginia State Police, U.S. Marshal Service, DEA, and of course our partners with the Richmond Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. So that started, it was scheduled for June 1st. We went into action on April 19th, and we've had a lot of success that I'll briefly discuss. So just since April 19th to June 30th, so this part of the year, we've made this Operation Safe Summer has made 120 arrests on felonies, 71 misdemeanors, 67 warrants served, and 100 illegal firearms taken off of our streets. So very productive with that group. And when we always want to talk about crime and compare it to the same time last year. So when we talk about comparisons, it's very difficult to compare the city of Richmond to other cities, even in the Commonwealth of Virginia or even nationwide. But one thing we can compare is where we were the same time last year. So for this time frame, one of the stats we like to keep is all persons shot. So we have people that are shot and killed, people that are shot during the course of a robbery, and people that are shot during the course of an aggravated assault. And we combine those numbers. And the reason that number is so important to us is certainly murder is the most important outcome, but the intent in almost all of our non-fatal shootings is the same as the murders. It's either just luck, the angle of the bullet, or the skill of the surgeon in one of our great hospitals. So during the same time period last year, we're down 12% in those all persons shot. So we're very pleased with that. We know we have more work to do, but we know that we've been able to stem that terrible tide of gun violence we saw in April. And here's an example, a good example from those detectives and officers and state troopers and federal agents working on these cases. I talk a lot about social media. So here's an example of this young man, Tyrell Moore, age 20 of Richmond, was seen on social media posting about a gun. Our investigators learned of it, took investigative steps, and were able to arrest him and charge him with felon in possession of a firearm, possession of a machine gun, and concealed weapon, second offense. The reason we're so focused on social media is, and I could give many more examples of this, but the reason we're so focused on social media is we know that's a way that our youth engage with each other, make threats online, and anytime we can intervene in a way to stop that gun violence, we want to do that. In this case, and you can even see there, that's a Glock switch on that particular firearm. And Ms. McKeechin and I were very adamant working with the General Assembly to make that a crime for in state court as well as in the federal system. So we're very pleased with this particular outcome. Another part of Operation Safe Summer that I briefed folks on was we were committed, working with security at RPS, to ensure that our students in our schools were able to have a safe graduation after obviously what happened last year at Altria. So we worked very diligently. We planned months ahead of time with our partners at RPS Security. And Operation Safe Summer took that week, those 4 days of graduation ceremonies, and we flooded it. Now, it looked like a lot of police out there, but I was at some of those graduation events, and I got so many positive comments from parents and loved ones. They were able to feel safe. They enjoyed it. It was great. Unfortunately, at two of these events, and on May 29th, we had to make an arrest of an individual who brought a firearm to that location. One of our officers spotted it, and we're able to arrest that individual, and that's pending court right now. That was on the campus of Virginia Union. And then 2 days later, on the parking deck, some of our investigators observed a man leave the venue, come back to his car, pull a gun out of the car, conceal it on his person, and start walking back towards the venue. They came up with a quick plan and were able to take him into custody very safely and seize that firearm and cite that individual as well. So I just want to be clear, there's been some confusion when I spoke about this previously. Neither one of these occurred in the venue itself. So these were outside, but it was proactive work by our detectives and officers, making sure that we were able to keep those events safe, and we were very pleased with that. Another part of Operation Safe Summer, we talk about Richmond Parks and Rec and other community facilities, late night gyms. So since May 31st and going up to September 1st, we have open gyms on Friday and Saturday nights at Belmead, the Gill Center, Randolph, and Richmond High School for the Arts, formerly George Wythe, where our youth can come in a safe environment and have those open gyms and do something positive, and we're just really pleased with that. Over 1,000 individuals have taken advantage of that, and we hope for many more. So now let's start with the mid-year crime. So mid-year crime, some of the successes that we're talking about is the homicide rate, 29% reduction over last year. So we had 27 this year so far for that first mid-year time frame. At the same time frame, we had 38 last year. So rapes are also down 49%. Robbery commercials are down 25%. Aggravated assaults are down 2%. Overall violent crime down 3%. And if you remember, these are on top of very good numbers we had last year. So last year we finished with a 7% reduction in overall violent crime. Where we're struggling is our robbery individuals. So those are consistent with what we've seen in years past. So it's, if you look back, one of the things that we always talk about is looking at crime in our city over a period of time. So in 2018, we had 149 robberies. We have 107 for mid-year. 2019, we had 136. So historically, that's not a high rate, but compared to the 80 we had last year, that's what we're struggling. When we look at this data, it's happening mainly in one part of our city. So this is our heat map. This shows exactly where these robberies are occurring, and it's right in South Richmond, Southwood, some of the areas and neighborhoods around that. So we're seeing a lot of those. We've made some significant arrests, and we were much higher. We were at 61% increase in the first quarter when I presented out. So we're doing a bit better, but it's still really unacceptable. And that's just going to be our focus for Second Precinct. We know where it's occurring. We know the times and days of the week it's occurring. So we're going to try to impact that so that by the end of the year we're getting closer to that number. So here's our violent crime threshold. Again, comparing Richmond to Richmond in the past. So 7 years of comparison, 3% down over last year, but you can look at 2018, 567 violent crimes versus this year, mid-year we're at 480. So when you compare those two numbers, that's a 15% reduction. So, and we're doing all that with a police department that is not staffed to where we were in 2018. In June of 2020, it's important to note, this police department had 740 officers. When I took over in October of 2022 and to today, we're hovering right around 600. So we've been able to do that with what we always talk about is one arm tied behind our back, or playing 4-on-5 if you want to use a basketball analogy. I'm pretty comfortable with that. But that's just a testament to the great work of our officers, our partners, our community, just really working towards driving that number down, even though we're short-staffed. So here's our murder threshold. Again, 7 years comparison, 27 versus a high of 38, but it's right in line with an average of 30. So we're continuing to do well with that. Our non-fatal shootings, if you remember last year, we finished the year, we were so proud of that number, 26% reduction in non-fatal shootings. This year we're a bit up, so we had 94 at this time last year, 99 this year for a 4% increase, but still, when you look at that historical number, still right within that average. And when we delved into those numbers, what's different about this year as last year is we are seeing more double. So we've had 8 double shootings where 2 people were shot. We've had 2 triple shootings, and then we've had 1 with 4 victims. So that's how you can really rack up those individual numbers. Another thing I like to talk about is the accidental shootings. Unfortunately, that stayed flat. That is something that we talk about. We talk about gun safety, but we've had 12 people accidentally shoot themselves. I presented out earlier in the year, the first accidental shooting of this year was a 3-year-old boy who found his father's gun at a hotel on Richmond Highway and accidentally shot himself. And as bad as that is, he's going to survive and recover, but we know how dangerous that is. That individual has been charged and is working his way through the criminal justice system. But 9 adults shot themselves accidentally, and unfortunately 3 juveniles, like I said, including a very young boy. So we've talked about this as well. Gun safes. So we have obtained grant funding. We look for partners who can work with us. The Richmond Sheriff's Office has invested in safes, so we have gun safes. You can call Dr. Gwen Andrews of our Richmond Community Mediators if you have a gun and you're unable to secure it. Every precinct commander also has these safes in the building in the event our officers encounter someone that has a firearm, they haven't committed any crime, but they just need a way to secure it. And that's something that we're really passionate about, and we know that this can save lives. And it's 85 we distributed this year, over 150 last year, so we're looking to get more and to get the word out there that if you live in Richmond and you want to secure your weapon, if we don't have a safe, I know Sheriff Irving has some. If we run out, if she runs out, there's a nonprofit that we just partnered with called Smart Secure Gun Storage Saves Kids' Lives. So very similar to what we're doing. You can go to this website, bestmarkforkids.org, and they can also provide a safe way to secure your weapon. So it's all about making sure that we understand the Second Amendment's a right, but it's also a responsibility, and we're going to try to do our part to make sure that all of our guns in our city are secured. So now we'll move into our traffic plan. When I go to community meetings, this is always the #1 topic. I'm going to be at Reva's meeting tonight, and I guarantee you this is what they're going to be talking about: speeding, crashes, and enforcement. So we have some good news to report on this as well. So mid-year 2024, we have 5 individuals who have died as a result of vehicle crashes. So this time last year we had 12, the year before we had 13, so 58% reduction. And part of that is due to some of the great work the city's doing as far as adding traffic tables. We have more speed enforcement than we've had over the past years. And then we'll talk about our safety camera program. So very pleased with that number, even though 5 is 5 too many. And of course, this does not count the most recent one that took place over the weekend on Sneed Road, where we had a individual walking in the middle of the night and was struck by a car. That was a hit and run. Our investigators are very close on that case and working diligently. We hope to have some good news on that one. And when we talk about these deaths, it's important to note that whether you die from the bullet or a car, that family is still just as devastated. The loss is just the same. And it's something that we have control over. When you look at this, most people would think it's all accident or alcohol related. Some certainly are, but a big part of it's driver inattention and speed. So we're begging our community to slow down, particularly in those areas of the high injury network where you can get going really fast. All right, here's our safety camera program, and here's an update. So we get a lot of questions about this. The 2 that are currently working at Patrick Henry School of Science and Arts and Linwood Holton Elementary. We've just gotten permits approved to add 3 more locations to Swansboro Elementary, Thomas Bouchal Middle, and MLK Middle. We're excited about that. We have pending applications at 5 other locations: River City Middle, Francis McClenny Elementary, Huguenot High, Westover Hills Elementary, and Mary Mumford Elementary. So we're about ready to put these other locations in, and as you'll see, people are speeding in Richmond. So, we are averaging, now obviously this is only 4 hours a day, as I've said, only during the school year. So one of them isn't even working right now. We've had to turn it off. So the only one that's currently at summer school is Linwood Holton. Patrick Henry the cameras are not on right now. So, but average of 76 per day, average citations going out, and we only anticipate more. So people are speeding, and we need to just continue to push that message when you're driving through these locations to slow down. It can actually save lives, including the operators themselves. So now we'll move over to year-to-date property crime. So the mid-year cycle, we have some good news. It's a mixed bag with this. So motor vehicle thefts, parts, and accessories. What's been a burden for us over the past several years was the catalytic converters. We are seeing that continue to fall off the map. So 30%, 32% reduction on that. Another good thing that is always our biggest crime in Richmond, and that is our theft for motor vehicles, down this year 9% over the mid-year cycle, but still a huge number. So 1,198 cars were broken into in just half the year. That's the number one crime we face. But we're seeing a bit of an uptake in overall burglaries of 4%. Motor vehicle thefts are 32% increased. Now that's a high number. But when I presented out the first quarter, we were at 85% increase over the previous year. So we are seeing some better movement on that. But again, still too high. We'll dive into the details a bit more on that. And shoplifting is up 15%. Again, we'll have some more details on that, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with that. But we have some good news on that front. Overall property crime increase of 3%. So we're looking at violent crime, 3% reduction, property crime, 3% increase. Here's what I'm sure you all were expecting. So ABC, we had a total of 932 shopliftings, 477 took place at ABC stores. 51% of all shoplifting in our city has taken place in an ABC store, and we have the list of the stores that are targeted the most. Some have, Stony Point has 1, whereas 1217 West Broad had 92, just that one store alone. And working in collaboration with ABC has agreed to turn this store into a package store, which basically puts the bottles behind glass. So you will have to go up to, there will be zero shoplifting going forward. We have a couple other package stores in Richmond. One is on Venable Street, the other is on North Avenue, and there are zero package thefts, shoplifting at those package stores. So we anticipate that when I'm before you again in 3 months, hopefully, it might disperse some of it, but we're still hoping for a better overall reduction. And again, motor vehicle thefts, this is a national trend. I've spoken about it a lot. We talk about Hyundai and Kias. When you look at this data, and one of the things too that we do, even if you're unsuccessful in stealing a car, if you break the steering column, we know what the intent is, and we track that as a stat, as attempted. So 24% of that big number, the thieves don't even get to steal the car because either the Hyundai or the Kia have the update, or they just, it doesn't work for whatever reason. So, but we're still tracking that data, but when we look at it, almost 50% of all of our motor vehicle thefts are accounted for by Hyundai and Kia. This is something else that I've spoken about over and over again, and maybe it's working. I hope it's working, but we are down 27% of firearms stolen out of cars. Almost all these cars are unlocked. So 262 guns were taken for the mid-year in Richmond. 262 guns are ending up in the hands of criminals. Almost exclusively, these guns are left in an unlocked car. That's still way better than last year, but 262 is totally unacceptable. This is a completely preventable crime. But we're going to continue to talk about it, educate the public. We know where these are occurring. Almost, over 50% of them are occurring in the Shockoe Bottom, and a lot of those are occurring overnight when folks go to the club. They know they're going to be searched when they walk into the club, so the guns are left in the car. The thieves know that. Well, we would ask people, particularly folks who are coming in from outside of Richmond, to leave your guns at home. If you're so afraid of a place that you're going that you got to pack your gun in your car, that should be a clue to not go to that place. If you're that scared, leave your guns at home, and we won't see this because by definition, by the very definition of how these guns are acquired, they are crime guns. They're ending up in the hands of criminals, and there's no background checks. And when we're seizing guns, these are often stolen. And I've talked about last year about some really high-profile examples of these guns. And the worst one was Marquand Nash, whose gun was. The gun used to kill him, a 13-year-old boy, was killed by a gun that was stolen out of an unlocked car less than 24 hours, less than a half a mile from his home, and he is shot and killed, gone from us, all because the owner of that gun failed to secure his weapon. So when we talk about motor vehicle thefts, again, what we're trying to do is give away these wheel locks. We have a lot of events. We've already had 2 big giveaways where we've had events. The next one's going to be July 21st at the Richmond Police Training Academy at 1202 West Graham Street. You can drive in there. If you own a Kia or a Hyundai and you're a city resident, we will give you one of these for free. This is an old school method to address a new school technical problem with the way Kia and Hyundais are stolen now. So I think this still works. We're seeing that's how we can solve this problem, because the upgrades are great. So Kia and Hyundai will upgrade you, change the programming so the thieves won't be able to steal it. But the problem is you're still going to have your steering column smashed, and it's going to cost you thousands of dollars to get it fixed, and you're still going to be out of a car until it can be fixed. So this is a great alternative in the meantime. And we're happy to have those events. We'll have more. And like I said, you can go to any of the 4 precincts, show the officer at the desk your registration, your ID, and we will be happy to give you this and even show you how it works. One of the commitments we have, obviously, is our community engagement, our community walks. So something we put on the calendar that just something to build into the system is every month we're walking in one of our communities. Every month we're having a pop-up in our community. So this year we went to Park Northside communities, Ashley Oaks Apartments, and certainly Wickham Court after they experienced some gun violence there. We were originally going to go to one place in 3rd Precinct, and last minute we shifted it, and we had a great turnout. We had some really important conversations with that community in Wickham Court, and I got an earful from some folks, but it was important to hear from them, particularly after the gun violence that Wickham had experienced in April. So our next one, and you're all invited to attend, is going to be July 17th at Manchester Lakes Apartments at Mandalay Road over in Southside at Sector 212. Come join us. We're going to walk through that area, talk about some of the crime trends we're seeing in that particular neighborhood, some of which are robberies, some of which are theft from motor vehicles and package theft. So we're going to be handing out some literature to the folks out there. And again, one of the things that we stress all the time is I want to have legitimate and real conversations with members of our community before the crime scene tape goes up. That's just an important part of our strategy. Again, pop-up events. These are some we've had in Southside, the West End. We have one in Hillside Court, and the next one is going to be in the Gilpin Court neighborhood on July 25th, 5 p.m. Thursday. Come out. We'll have some ice cream. We'll have a DJ. We'll have an event in Gilpin Court, and get to hear one-on-one those conversations we need to have with members of our community. Another thing this was such a successful event for community engagement. So we had another Hispanic Citizens Academy graduation on April 19th. We do that for citizens, we do it for seniors, we also do it particularly for the Latino community in Richmond that sometimes feels like they get overlooked. So we had 31 people apply for that academy. We've never had that much. And it was awesome because they were so excited to get to know their police department, to understand that we are their police department regardless of what their country of origin is, regardless of what their language is. We are their police department, and we want to hear their problems directly. And every time we have one of the events, we're building more trust in that community that sometimes loses trust with law enforcement. So I see some of the folks in this in our meeting today with this event, and Sybil created this slide, so I'm not as technically savvy to put this, but just a really good event on National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Now, everyone knows about our hotspots, so we have a very good relationship with the Richmond NAACP, and they took it upon themselves to go to these hotspots, again, all throughout the city where we're experiencing gun violence, and they invited us to it. The Richmond Police Department didn't organize this. The Richmond Police Department didn't advertise this. We were just a partner in this with the NAACP, and it was just a great way to kick off Anti-Gun Violence Awareness Day. And again, really important conversations. I went to some of those locations where we had just experienced gun violence, and it was great. So thank you to those members, and we'll have more to say about that. Again, so one of the things we've talked about, we've analyzed where our crime's going to be, and we focused like a laser in these. We had 22 spots picked. We took one of them off because when we continued our analysis, we realized that there was one family in that cul-de-sac on Goodwood, 700 block of Goodwood, that had moved, and that family had multiple shootings involved in them as the victim, as the perpetrator, multiple shootings into occupied dwellings. So once they moved, we realized the calls for service fell off the map, so we adjusted. And we focused on these other 21 locations. And what we're focusing on is not only our enforcement strategy, but also our deterrent strategy. If you were to go on your phone in any hour of the night and you look, in every community meeting I go to, someone asks me about this, but if you were to go on your phone and look at the active calls for service, you would see something called the hotspot curve. And that is a 10 to 15 minute non-enforcement visit in one of these areas that's experiencing gun violence. So a uniformed, marked police officer, marked police unit in those areas, the officer's out talking with folks, deterring crime from occurring. There's studies that show that those short visits at random intervals deters crime, and we're seeing that. And if crime does occur, then what I'm really interested in as the chief of police is I don't have my officers sitting at the precinct or sitting at the pumps. They are forward deployed in these neighborhoods that need us the most. So even if something does happen, the response time goes from 5 minutes to 1 minute. And everyone, I expect everyone in the police department to participate in this. So it's, some of our officers are not out there doing the type of work that our investigators do. They just don't, they're not interested in that. They don't have the acumen or ability or interest to really focus on that type of investigative work, but everyone can participate in this. And that's one of the things that we hold our supervisors accountable for. I will never set a goal for gun seizures. I will never set a goal for traffic stops or felony arrests, but I do set goals for these visits, and we measure them and we track them every week, and the captains have to present out on them, and if they're short, we want to know why. And sometimes they have a good reason, but sometimes they don't. And then I stick Sybil on them and she yells at them and they makes them get more. So this is something that I'm just so really proud of, our recruitment strategy. So 129th basic recruit class, we have hired 28 new recruits. This is the biggest class we've had since the 121st. So since 2019. I mean, that is just before 2020. We are still below our staffing. We are still losing officers that have to retire, but we're getting more officers back, and this is going to be the biggest class. We're just so excited. We've attended 55% more events trying to recruit officers. Lieutenant Borges back there is in charge of that unit, and they're just doing a fantastic job, and we're doing this without lowering our standards. So our standards have remained the same. What we're trying to do is every officer in the Richmond Police Department is a recruiter. Every time we're talking about this job, we're recruiting and we're looking and we're asking people from the community, if you know someone that wants to serve, to check us out. And the best recruiting that we have is when folks do ride-alongs with us and they get to see what a Richmond Police Department officer does on a daily basis and the impact that you get to have. So we're just really pleased with that. We need about 3 or 4 more like that, though. No pressure, Gary. And some of the reasons I think, and there's a lot of reasons why people select RPD, but one of the things that I really must thank the mayor for, thank City Council, thank CAO Saunders, Deputy CAO Joy Hogg for focusing on some of these benefits. So we have moved into a competitive salary with our local surrounding jurisdictions. So almost 56,000 starting salary for recruits. When you graduate the academy, it's 58,000. Something that Richmond does that I don't know any other police departments do is if you have a child, you get 8 weeks of free parental leave. That means you get 8 weeks off. You don't have to use your sick time. That is a huge benefit. Lieutenant Killingsworth, how many times have you used that?
I got 7.
7 kids, very prolific. And you named your last kid LeVar, is that what we heard? So very appreciative of the mayor for instituting this policy, but it's just something, we want this to be an employer of choice, and things like that, to me, show our employees that we care, even though it's challenging and it's costly to give someone free time off, but bonding with your child is a way we can keep employees for the long term, and that's what we're trying to do. Another thing that doesn't often get discussed is we are in Central Virginia, we're the only police department that has collective bargaining. Now, collective bargaining is a challenge for us in management, but it's also an opportunity for officers who come from states where that is the norm. So that has also, having that great relationship with the union that we cultivated and we're still working on, has led to, I think, another selling point for those folks that come from around the country that want to be a part of a police department that has the protections of a union. We've also transitioned to the Virginia retirement system. So that also opens up laterals from around the Commonwealth who are in VRS, from other police departments that want to come to Richmond and serve. They'd no longer have to worry about losing the time into that system. So Marathon Health Clinics, we've talked about this. And again, this was spearheaded by DCAO Joy Hogg, who really pushed this. Other cities have done it. So you can go to Marathon Health Clinics, no copay, on multiple locations within the city. Another great benefit for us. And nobody has more paid holidays in the Richmond Police Department. We're inventing new holidays, apparently. But it's 17, 2 mental health days as well. So we had, we have 2 days that you can go to your supervisor, and you don't have to lie and say, I'm sick. You can say, Sergeant, I need a day off, and you will get it. 2 per year that we give to our employees. I don't know anyone else that does that. We have a bilingual incentive that is becoming more and more important every day. And then a first-time homebuyer benefit for officers that want to start. The city will provide some funding towards your down payment if you're a first-time homebuyer. So we're really trying to build that community within the organization to make this an employer of choice. And there's, again, so thankful to City Council and members of the mayor's staff. And I think we're just really moving the needle on that with those benefits. And again, here's some more data on the personnel recruiting. So applications are up 25% over mid-year last year. And again, that's what we're really interested in doing. More people getting interested in this job so that we don't have to sacrifice anything. We have a wider pool of great people to choose from. And then lateral rehire, so 25% over the same time last year. So we have 20 officers this year that have come back to the Richmond Police Department to serve. And the benefit of those individuals are whether they came from one of the surrounding jurisdictions or they left law enforcement altogether and have come back to us. The benefit of that is they can hit the ground running after a few weeks of lateral training. They know our city, we know them, and it's just we're making that, I've made phone calls myself, calling people that are wearing green and gray and saying, hey, come back home. We're always, we can make that work for you. You can go to the precinct you want to go to. You work evening or night shift. You're not going to go to day shift, but you can go to evening or night shift, and we're going to, just come home. So we're seeing some success with that. And again, every one of those individuals is a win for us. And some of you attended our promotional ceremony 2 weeks ago, I think it was, on June 28th. Just another great event. We have 2 new captains, 4 new lieutenants, and 6 new sergeants, the next crop of leaders for the Richmond Police Department. This time I'm going to introduce Terry Wilfong. Terry is a strategic site liaison for the National Public Safety Partnership, and Deputy Chief Sybil Elamine Jones, who is our liaison for PSP. And some of the folks in the room have been a part of that, and they're going to explain. We're coming to the end of it. So it's been I've talked about it before, where it's a 3-year program. We're coming to the last 6 months, and we're just excited about the things that we've been able to learn through this process and some of the benefits still yet to be given. So I'll take a seat.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Gosh, after that presentation, I wish I was 21 years old. I would join the Richmond Police Department. Wow, great benefits. Come a long way from when I first met you. This is a 3-year commitment with the Richmond Police Department. And when I first came here as a PSP liaison, is that the chief here was a captain, and he was my point of contact. So I've known him since a captain, and we've been spending 3 years together. So just to give you a little background about PSP, Public Safety Partnership, was created 2014 with the Department of Justice and also with BJA. And it was a pilot program that started way back then and was very successful and has evolved as the years has gone on. So basically what it is that a police department would submit an application to put in to be part of this program, which Richmond did. And it's reviewed, and then they make a decision of who will be a city. So when Richmond came on, there were 9 other cities, so there were 10 cities. All of the SSL people, which is what I am, I'm a retired law enforcement. I did 33 years, are retired chiefs. So it's law enforcement working with law enforcement. So when they make the commitment of the 3 years, and this is what PSP offers, the main thing is that we offer is we want to help cities reduce violent crime. That is the sole purpose of this. Also, what we do is anything and everything we can to help the city, and we can't do this without our federal partners. And of course, our U.S. Attorney's Office is here, state partners, we have the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, I think the U.S. Marshal came here. But we can't do that without the partners and the community members. Also, we need those 3 partners to be able to reduce the violent crime, because this is not a police issue. This is a community issue. I travel all across this country, and that's what it needs to take to reduce violent crime. So what we offer is basically virtual academy training, where it's a program that they can watch on the computers. The officers can receive training for that. We also have peer exchanges in which they can go to other cities. The chief has gone to several different cities in which they're doing really great things, and then they could bring it home and say, we want to implement this into our cities. We also provide technical assistance. Crime analysis is one of the ones we brought in a subject matter expert that worked with the crime analysis unit. I'm very proud of where they are today from where they were when I first started here 3 years ago. Chief, that's under your leadership. That was one of the very first things he wanted to work upon. The other was technical support, looking at what they need in that area. But we sent to quite a few different cities so that they can capture information and bring it home. But Richmond has things also that I've taken out. I was just on a call where all the SSLs from all across the country on a call, there's like 52 of us, and you had to submit something they wanted for anybody to do in the summer initiative. And I was one for what Richmond is doing, and only 4 of us were chosen. And I was very proud. I got to speak 20 minutes on what Richmond is doing with the pop-up tents, with the community walks, with the chief spearing that. But I just remember the chief telling me about the pop-up tents, and also Sybil, who does a tremendous job with that. That's going to be her baby, is that we want kids. We really focused on kids. We wanted, when we went into these neighborhoods, that when they see the police, they're not there to lock up mom and dad. They're not there to lock up brother. They're not there to serve a search warrant. They're not coming because somebody's lost their life. They're coming in there so they can know they're a person. And that really touched my heart. And that's what I really talked about on the PSP call, was the commitment that Richmond has. So I'm really sad that the 3-year commitment has come to an end. It will at the end of September. But the goal that we have is that we worked really hard, and Sybil, Deputy Chief, will talk about the strategic plan. Is something she'll go into detail about. That was the last commitment that we had to work upon. But what the goal is that the partnerships still continue after PSP has left. And I do believe that's going to happen, because we travel all across the country, and Richmond's one of the few cities that I can say the federal and local partners work very close together and have really great relationships, and that's the main thing. Pick up the phone and call, and it works extremely well. So the advisor that I have that's been with me, we have visited all the partners that we could for the closeout and just asking them about PSP, and we got a very good review of what they thought PSP brought to the city of Richmond. So, Chief, thank you for the commitment, and thank you for everything you've done with PSP. I appreciate it.
Can you see me in the back? I hope not. My evil plan is working if you cannot. I'm Deputy Chief.
raised the.
Yeah,
we did think
see,
about
for
you,
you,
Sybil. All
right.
sorry.
And I'm a normal sized person, okay? In my mind. I'm Deputy Chief Sybil Elamine Jones, and I am assigned to patrol. So I'm going to talk about our strategic plan. So one of the great things about PSP is that they helped us organize a meeting where we brought in stakeholders, external and internal, along with our federal partners, to talk about creating a strategic plan for gun violence in the city of Richmond. You might remember our core values that we brought at the end or early 2023. So we started with using those core values. They're not just on the wall somewhere. Using the core values. The first core value is about community engagement. And so we asked those stakeholders to participate in this event. It was in February, earlier this year, to get feedback from them. What did they feel the issue might be in the city as it relates to gun violence? We also made use of our core value number 5 that talks about using research and evidence-based research to look for solutions when helping us try to reduce the violent crime. From that, we were able to create our strategic plan. Now, I put a handout over there that talks about P&I a little bit more in depth. It has been used in Las Vegas, and so we're basically mirroring that. P&I is not something new, it's hotspot policing, but using micro hotspots. So instead of using a larger area, really dialing down and coming up with those 22 locations that the chief talked about earlier. Our federal partners and other external agencies assisted us greatly, and I cannot thank them enough. If I try to start listing this, I'm going to miss someone. That's why the pictures are going to be up here for me. But again, they're in the room today, and we cannot say enough about those partnerships where they sat with stakeholders and we went over the violent crime and how they could assist us as well, because as you know, we can't get anything done without the community and our law enforcement community. So we came up with 3 goals. The complete strategic plan will be placed on all of our social media platforms. But we came up with 3 different goals for our department to work on for this year and the next. We also required each Deputy Chief Collier, I didn't tell you about this yet, but you're in here, Deputy Chief Collier, and Deputy Chief Albert Stokes as well. We are going to be the champions for each of these goals, but we also have a community stakeholder that's assigned to our group. Mr. J.J. Minor, Mr. Juan Braxton, Mr. Charles Willis, Ms. Sandra Antoine, and then we have faith leaders as well that are going to participate in the program. Our Dr. Gwen Andrews, and then Reverend Dante McCutcheon, he also is going to participate in this plan. And the goals really address 3 things. Making sure we meet with the community, we're transparent, and we're looking for solutions to stop the gun violence in the city. I'm not going to bore you with all the strategies because it's like 4 more pages, and I know you don't really want to go through each one, but we are going to place each of these things on our social media platforms so everyone can see exactly what we've done and hold us accountable if we aren't able to reach some of these goals that we've placed for ourselves. So the chief's going to come back up and answer any questions anyone may have and give the thank you.
Thank you. All right, so boy, let me lower this or? All right. So now I'm happy to answer a few questions. Cam?
So Chief, just kind of go back to the Operation Safe Summer. Can you talk about what you all are attributing to that 12% drop in the total shootings? I know you kind of touched on the micro hotspots. I don't know if there's more of the deterrence, or were you stopping retaliatory shootings? Remember, the Real Life program talked about, like, you can track 6 shootings back to 1, I think. Can you just expand on what you attribute?
Yeah, sure. I think the example we gave about the social media boasting on the guns is just one of many examples. So there is an enforcement part of it, there's a deterrent part of it, and there's a community-focused part of it. So I think, and what Operation Safe Summer does is it turns that plan that's just the Richmond Police Department into all of our other partners, our federal partners, state police. I think all of that has an impact on it.
I know you mentioned that there were more double shootings or more shootings involving multiple people. Is that from fights starting, or what do you guys think is kind of the cause behind that right now?
Well, absolutely. The number one motive that we know about for homicides and non-fatal shootings are verbal disputes that escalate. And the problem that we have when multiple people are being shot, 2, 3, and 4, is that oftentimes what we find is multiple different cartridge cases at the scene. So there's not one shooter. There sometimes is up to 3, 4, 5 different cartridge casings. And when we review the video, when we talk to witnesses, we often hear, and the motive is often, it starts with a physical fight, someone goes and gets a gun, and then as soon as one person pulls the trigger, anyone with a gun starts shooting. So, and I've said this before, but again, it bears repeating. If you're the type of person that knows you have a hot temper and you're going to go confront your neighbor about the barking dog, maybe leave your gun at home. And then you know you can control that aspect of it. Some people have a difficulty controlling once they get really angry about shooting. So that's what we would ask folks, to understand that you carrying a gun doesn't necessarily make you safer, particularly for the type of person that flies off the handle. So that's what we're seeing. It's not generally drug related. It's not robbery related. Those are very few and far between. Most are verbal disputes that escalate.
Can you talk about community engagement in those 21 remaining hotspots that you mentioned, the, I guess, obligatory patrols
Yes.
at regular intervals, but are the communities in those specific areas also engaged in helping police do their job?
Yes, I think, the first thing I mentioned, or one of the things I mentioned, was when our partners in the NAACP picked some of those spots and, advertised it, and folks actually came out. So the hotspot curves that we're talking about, those are short visits for officers, and they're designed to, not be enforcement based. But the pop-ups and the walks, again, every month, we're at least doing 2 of those. We've also have a strategy that we want our precinct commanders deploying something called an outdoor roll call. So we have meetings before every shift. We set goals for that, so our officers pick one of these 21 spots and do their roll call that they would normally do inside the building, and do it out in the community. And invariably, when people see that, when folks see 7 cops with a sergeant and talking, they engage. And we just say, hey, we're out here. We're talking about the briefing from the previous night's events. We're looking at crime trends, and this is what we're seeing in your neighborhood. So we're always looking for those opportunities. We've standardized it with the walks and the pop-ups, but there's always those ad hoc events that we're always looking to do so that we can, again, meet our community when there's not crime scene tape up. Yes?
I know you said individual robberies are up 34% compared to last year, and most of them are in South Richmond. Are you guys doing anything to address this specifically in that area? If so, what are you doing differently?
Yes, so the commander of 2nd Precinct is very well aware of this trend. She has to speak about it often at our meetings, and she is going to have overtime assignments, so officers fixating on those times when we're experiencing robberies, having patrols in those neighborhoods, encouraging officers to sign up for that and come in. We're also, they've done a good job making key arrests. That's why it was 85% the first quarter, and now it's less. Still unacceptable, but what we've learned is that very few people rob one person. So they're going to keep robbing until we stop them, or they're arrested for something else, and they're just taken, that way. So I think, making sure that we're relentless on our follow-up on those criminal investigations, and making sure that no stone is left unturned, while at the same time trying to bring in more resources, particularly, and I know we discussed it at South Richmond, but it's really focused on Southwood, which is our biggest apartment complex in Richmond. And, it's very challenging for us. The apartment complex doesn't have a lot of cameras out there, so we're hoping for them to invest in that, as other apartment complexes have. We've seen some historically dangerous locations that have invested in infrastructure that can really change the tide. Criminals hate light. They hate when an area is well lit. They hate seeing obvious video cameras out there. They hate seeing license plate recognition cameras out there, and it can really impact crime before we even have to pull our handcuffs out. Cam?
Regarding the thefts of the guns from the cars, how many have you recovered this year so far, whether it be through arrests or they've been used in crimes and you tied it to a criminal use?
I don't have that number. That's probably something we can get back with you on. But that is an interesting stat. And not only are we recovering guns that were stolen out of Richmond, this is a regional problem too. So Henrico and Chesterfield, oftentimes when our officers are seizing guns, they're from there as well. So we can, James, if you could make a note of that, we'll get back to them on that.
The ABC shoplifting, the one turning into a package store, has that already shifted to a packaging store? Have you year to date when that's going to happen?
It's in the process of shifting, but I know that we haven't had a shoplifting since it started. So the last one was in early June. So that's a huge win for us. And, I'd like them all to be package stores. I know the ABC director will lose a lot of money, but that would make my life easier. Sure.
Sorry.
No,
Maybe another
you're
question.
monopolizing
I have the
things.
data for it. Regarding those, the speed camera violations outside the schools, I know you gave the numbers of citations issued. How many of those have actually been paid?
Again, I'm not sure. We can certainly look into that. That's, I think most people, because the fees are not really that large, will just pay it, but they all obviously have the opportunity to come to court as well and fight it, because the cameras don't show the actual driver, so it just shows the car. So some people will call us and say, well, it was my sister doing it, and there's a process for that. So, but yeah, we can look into that, but I think the courts accept the fees on those.
Do you know when the next, or any of the permits were approved for the next 3 of them? Is there like a date in mind of when they might go?
Well, what I'm pushing for is, nothing would happen now, but I want it before school starts. So I think that's the goal for me. But there are some weird things that I wouldn't have thought can be challenging issues, like power and infrastructure challenges that sometimes slow that process down. But we have the location set, and we know that that is a part of our strategy to slow folks down and keep them safe. Okay, I'm here.
All right, I'm switching back, a few months ago, just the Keisha Jacobs matter. I know when I was speaking to the detectives after her celebration of life, they said they, didn't want to release information about what gave you the possibility to determine that case is closed. Are you able to say more at this point?
Yes, we can give a brief update on that. And I do appreciate members of the media. I know there was a lot of interest in that case. Tony and the rest of Keisha's family obviously is devastated by the final realization that she is no longer with us. So I appreciate giving some time. But one thing we can say is that, this case has been with us since 2016. Many investigators have worked on it. We were able to interview a person of interest who did admit that he was present with her when she passed away and disposed of the body. So he was able to give that comfort to her family. His name is Otis Tucker. He is in Florida right now doing life in prison for a separate murder unrelated to this incident. So, we would like to thank the Richmond Commonwealth Attorney's Office for working closely with us. I would even like to thank Mr. Tucker's father, who accompanied investigators to Florida for that interview and convinced his son to help give Keisha's family some peace.
And was there any sort of, obviously, I believe he's serving life in prison, that no prosecution promise type thing related to that?
There was. So there was a agreement to not use it against him in any future proceedings. So it's a very sad story, and I know we had all hope that she would be found, but unfortunately, she was not. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I just want to clarify. So he was sentenced for the murder?
No.
In jail?
Yeah, unrelated murder. Yes.
And I know you just said that he admitted he was with her at the time she died. Is that admitting that he did it, or is that admitting that? Can you say a little more about that or no? That's okay.
Well, he did not say he killed her. He did admit to disposing her body in a way that, I don't want to go into details about it, but in a way that we are unable to find her.